اللهم صل على محمد طب القلوب ودوائها وعافية الأجساد وشفائها ونور الأبصار وجلائها وعلى آله وصحبه وبارك وسلم.
الحمد لله وكفى والصلاة والسلام على عباده الذين اصطفى خصوصا على أفضلهم وخاتم النبيين محمد الأمين وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين وبعد. فأعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. ونزلنا عليك الكتاب تبيانا لكل شيء وهدى ورحمة وبشرى للمسلمين. صدق الله العظيم. Brother Chairman, Datu Ilyas, brothers and sisters here at Hotel De Palma in Ampang Point in Kuala Lumpur, in Surau Nurul Hikmah. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Our topic tonight is a nice one. You will enjoy it, inshallah. The Muslim village in Akhirulzaman. The Muslim kampung in Akhirulzaman. And we have to begin by defining Akhirulzaman, or the end time. The religion of Islam, the Quran, and the ahadith of the Prophet sallallahu ta'ala alayhi wasallam have given us a view of history that the historical process will not continue forever. That history will come to an end, and that it will end with the triumph of truth over all rivals. Allah says in the Quran, بعد أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم هو الذي أرسل رسوله بالهدى ودين الحق ليظهره على الدين كله وكفى بالله شهيدا. He it is who has sent his messenger Muhammad alayhi salatu wasalam with the guidance and with the deen, or the way of life of al-haq, of truth, al-Islam, that it might prevail over all rivals, that it might prevail over all rivals. History cannot end without the fulfillment for the last time of this divine statement, that truth will prevail over all rivals. It is only after history has ended with the triumph of truth over all rivals, only then, sometime later, we don't know how long, only then will the world itself end. And then we'll have the resurrection, the ba'athu ba'd al-maut, and the judgment, and Jannah and Jahannam. History will end with a last age. Nabi Muhammad alayhi salatu wasalam described that last age to us. as the age of fitan, of great tests and of trials. And He has given us many signs by which we can recognize that last age, or Akhirulzaman. And we're not going to spend tonight informing you of all those signs. One is enough, because we have lectured on this subject so many times already in the past. The Prophet ﷺ was in the masjid with his companions when this stranger entered and asked the 5 questions. And the Prophet ﷺ answered them. The stranger confirmed they were correct, and then he left. And then the Prophet ﷺ asked, do you know who he was? He was Jibreel alayhi salam. Allah sent him in the form of a human being in front of everybody, perhaps for the first time in history. Among the questions which were asked, the last one was, what are the alamatu sa'ah? What are the signs of the last day, of Akhirulzaman? And the Prophet ﷺ gave 2 signs, one of which you're quite familiar with in KL, at least these last 10 years or so. He said that you will find the naked, barefooted shepherds competing with each other in the construction of tall buildings. There's one in KLCC, the Twin Towers. And around the world today, we see the competition. Today it's Kuala Lumpur, tomorrow it's Seoul, the day after it's Dubai, and then Jeddah comes along and says, no, we're going to beat all of you. It started with Manhattan. They called it the skyscrapers. If you cannot see the competition going on in the world for the construction of tall buildings, I suggest that you make an appointment with an eye specialist. We are living in Akhirulzaman. And here is the evidence before you. There is an abundance of other evidence, but this is enough. What are the implications of living in Akhirulzaman? The Prophet ﷺ came upon some of his companions who were sitting talking amongst themselves, and he asked, what are you talking about? And they said, we are talking about the signs of the last day. This hadith is in Sahih Bukhari, it is in Sahih Muslim. And he answered and he said, the last day would not come until, and he mentioned 10 signs. Apart from these 10, there are many others. But in this hadith, he mentioned 10. And these have traditionally become known as the major signs. Number 1, and they have not been given in the chronological sequence in which they will occur, meaning which one comes first and which one comes second and which one comes third. Number 1, Dajjal, the false Messiah. I wrote Jerusalem in the Quran 10 years ago or more to explain the subject. Dajjal, the false Messiah, Al-Masih al-Dajjal. Number 2, Ya'juj and Ma'juj, or Gog and Magog. It is rare to find anyone with any proper knowledge of this subject today, as though knowledge has fled. Part of the reason why nobody knows the subject, is because nobody teaches the subject. That's why. Nobody teaches the subject. When last did you go to attend the khutbah, Salatul Jummah, and hear the khatib explaining the Quran as it refers to Gog and Magog? And these are human beings, not some strange creatures living down in the interior of the earth. Human beings. Number 3, the return of the son of Mary, Nabi Isa alayhi salam, the most powerful voice in history to have prophesied that the son of Mary would return is the voice of Nabi Muhammad sallallahu ta'ala alayhi wa sallam. Number 4, dukhan, smoke. We don't know what kind of smoke, but it looks to me, and when I give my opinion, don't accept it. Don't do that. No. When I give an opinion, you must only accept it when you are convinced that it is correct. Otherwise, it's disrespect for your own intellect. It looks to me increasingly as though the smoke is the malhama, which is around the corner. Nuclear war, with thousands of nuclear weapons exploding. The mushroom clouds. But Allah knows best. Number 5, Dabbatul Ard, a beast or a creature of the earth. Number 6, that the sun would rise from the west. Number 7, 8, and 9, 3 earthquakes, 3 shakings of the earth, in which the earth sinks down and swallows what it swallows. 1 in the east, 1 in the west, and the last one in Tamansiri, UK. No, the last one in Arabia. That one in Tamansiri, UK was maybe 5-10 years ago. The whole house went down. It was Ramadan. And number 10, that a fire will come out of Yemen and drive people to their place of assembly. These are the 10 major signs that we know of. Among the 10, one of them is of special importance for us, of Akhirulzaman. That Nabi Muhammad alayhi salatu wasalam gets information from Allah, Allah speaks to him. This is Hadithul Qudsi, direct speech of Allah, reported to us by Nabi Muhammad alayhi salatu wasalam, and it is in Sahih Bukhari, I think 4 times. That it is the day of judgment. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala addresses Adam alayhi salam, our father, and says to him, take out the people for Jahannam. And Adam alayhi salam asks, how many are they, O Allah? And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala replies, and he says, out of every 1,000, take 999 for the hellfire. Maybe you didn't hear that. So let's repeat it. Out of every 1,000, take 999 for Jahannam. The companions of the Prophet ﷺ were terrified. And he looked upon them and he smiled. And he said, good news for you. The one for Jannah will be from you. Meaning, people who worship Allah and who follow Muhammad alayhi salatu wasalam and who have faith in this Quran. The one for Jannah will be from you. But then he went on to say that the 999 would all be the people of Gog and Magog, Ya'juj and Ma'juj. So when Akhirulzaman comes, and you see the evidence of Gog and Magog, you know that mankind is heading for the hellfire. And only 1 in 1,000 can escape. And so it is such a pity that nobody knows the subject of Gog and Magog. Nobody. Because, as I said before, nobody teaches the subject. I know, because I've been a voice crying in the wilderness for 15, 17 years now. People used to say, he's mad or he's crazy. We never heard about Gog and Magog. They didn't even know that Gog and Magog are in the Quran. They didn't even know that. They call me all kinds of names. One of the ways in which we can solve that problem is, of course, to go back to the Quran and study the subject. And go to the ahadith of Nabi Muhammad alayhi salatu wasalam and study the subject. But it's not an easy subject. I wrote an Islamic view of Gog and Magog in the modern world 5 years ago, maybe? No, 3 years ago. And that book is outside. An Islamic view of Gog and Magog in the modern world, in which I have provided the evidence that Gog and Magog now control power in the world. Go and examine the evidence. When Gog and Magog are released, they're going to corrupt the whole world. They're agents of fasad, that which corrupts and destroys. So they corrupt and they destroy the political system. They corrupt and they destroy the economic system. They corrupt and destroy the market. They corrupt and destroy money, the monetary system. They corrupt and they destroy the sexual bond between the male and female, the role of gender. They corrupt and they destroy proper education. They corrupt and they destroy sports and entertainment. And everything is corrupted by Gog and Magog. It is my perception, and you may want to share with me that view, that we are now living in an age in which the world is more corrupted than it has ever been in history. There is more fasad in the world today than ever before in human history. And the only possible way we can explain that universal fasad is with Gog and Magog. What do we do? In Suratul Kahf of the Quran, you have the answer. This is the surah of the Quran, as they say in French, and we have many French-speaking people here tonight. This is the surah par excellence of Akhirulzaman, or Islamic eschatology. Study the surah, Suratul Kahf. This is the surah which introduces the subject of Gog and Magog. This is the surah, the only one in the whole Quran which is linked with Dajjal. And this is the surah about which Nabi Muhammad alayhi salatu wasalam said, and please listen to me, I know you're busy people. Yes, you don't have to tell me that. But take a little time. Slow down. He said, recite Suratul Kahf on the day of Jum'ah, and you will get nur. Nur, like you will get nur from the samawat to the earth, and that nur will stay with you until the next Jum'ah. This is Suratul Kahf. Why do we know? Why do we need that nur? Because in Akhirulzaman, the mastermind in the world is Al-Masih Ad-Dajjal. And he has a PhD in deception. One of my friends got his PhD and he got very angry when I said Dajjal has a PhD. He has a PhD in deception. Yes, you may have your PhD from MIT or from the Sorbonne or from Oxford or Cambridge, and you consider yourself that you've made it. But let me tell you something. Dajjal comes with two things, a river and a fire, said the Prophet ﷺ. Look at Kalamul Anbiya. Look at the beauty of words of the Prophet. He comes with a river and a fire. But his river is a fire, and his fire is the cool waters of a river. Whoever falls in his river will have his load of sins increased, and whosoever falls in his fire would have his load of sins decreased. In other words, he takes the road to heaven and makes it look like the road to hell. And he takes the road to hell. He does it every night on television and makes it look like the road to heaven. And if you don't have nur, if you don't have nur, you will be deceived, because you will make your judgment based on external appearance, and you will not be able to penetrate internal reality. Appearance and reality are opposite to each other. The only way you can penetrate internal reality and recognize things for what they are and not what they appear to be is if Allah puts nur in your heart. That nur is not sold in the stock market. Don't bother to try. No. That nur does not come from the government or from any political party. That nur comes only from Allah. If you had nur, you would have recognized the shirk of the modern age. And if you do not have nur, even if we were to tell you again and again and again and again, you still will not understand. You still would not accept. Dajjal has deceived mankind. Ikhwan al-Muslimun in Egypt, I feel so sad for them. They are celebrating. They should be weeping. Yes. The Party of Justice and Development in Turkey, which would like us to believe that they are the champions of Islam, are celebrating. We are the government. They should be weeping. The Nahda in Tunisia, who now form the government, are celebrating. They should be weeping. Yes. They don't understand the shirk of the modern age. We have explained it to them. They will not accept. Allah gave us a system of political organization. He gave it to us. The Khilafah and Darul Islam, a system of political organization which recognizes Allah as Al-Malik, the sovereign, which recognizes Allah as Al-Akbar, the supreme authority, which recognizes Allah as Al-Hakam, the one whose law is the supreme law. This is simple language that I'm using. It's not complex. What they did was to destroy the Khilafah. And the process was a long one. They first of all took the Khilafah out of the Arab world and took it up to a non-Arab city of Constantinople, where it remained for years and years and years and years and years and years, until the foundations of the Khilafah in the Arab world had been lost. And then they abolished the Khilafah in Istanbul. And then the Arabs made a last-ditch effort to restore the Khilafah. It lasted for only a month or two, before Britain turned to Ibn Saud, Abdulaziz Ibn Saud, to destroy it. And he dutifully destroyed it. And the Khilafah is gone. Nobody weeps anymore over the loss of the Khilafah. Nobody loses sleep anymore over the loss of Darul Islam. And then Dajjal brought a substitute. And that substitute that he brought to replace the Khilafah was built firmly on the foundations of shirk. And the world of Islamic scholarship failed, and failed miserably, to even recognize the shirk. Even as great a scholar as Dr. Muhammad Iqbal, a man for whom I have tremendous respect. Oh yes, I consider him as my teacher. Even he gave the opinion that the modern Republican state, which came out of Dajjal's modern Western civilization, with its parliament, is an adequate substitute for the Khilafah. A more misguided statement you cannot find on this subject. Dajjal gave us the modern secular state, which then embraced the whole world. And we don't have the time to go through that political history tonight, which declared that Allah is no longer Al-Malik. No, the state is now Al-Malik. The state has sovereignty. Sovereignty resides in the state, not with Allah. Is that not shirk? How come the scholars of Islam cannot recognize that? Allah is no longer Al-Akbar. No, the state is Al-Akbar. Supreme authority resides with the state. And the states get together to form an international organization called the United Nations Organization. And the United Nations Organization has a Security Council. And the Charter of the United Nations declares that supreme authority in the world, in all matters pertaining to international peace and security, reside with the Security Council. That's shirk. The modern state says Allah is no longer Al-Hakam. His law is no longer supreme. The law of the state is now supreme. That is shirk. Allah can make it haram, like lending money on interest, riba. We can make it halal, and if you step out of this hotel, you see all the banks around lending money on interest. Yeah. Have you seen them? Have you? They made it halal. Allah made it haram, they made it halal. Okay? If you make halal what Allah made haram, or if you make haram what Allah made halal, then according to the verse of Surah At-Tawbah, we don't have the time to narrate it for you, this is shirk. And so welcome to Akhirulzaman, in which there is universal shirk. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says about himself, Inna Allah yaghfiru dhunuba jami'a. Allah is a loving God. He is a merciful God. He is a forgiving God. Tell my servants, if they come to me with sins as high as the sky, I will forgive them all. But there is one sin that he will not forgive, and that is shirk. Well then, how can a loving, merciful, forgiving God send 999 out of every 1,000 into the hellfire? How? When last did the Khatib ever quote this hadith in a khutbah? Do you recall? 999 out of every 1,000 going into the hellfire, Sahih Bukhari. When last did a Khatib quote this hadith? There's only one way we can explain 999 to the hellfire, with a God who is merciful and forgiving, and that is shirk, the one sin that he will not forgive. What do we do to escape from shirk? Suratul Kahf, in Malaysia they say Suratul Kahfi, is the one surah of the Quran which, par excellence, I said, is the surah of Akhirulzaman. How does it end? فَمَنْ كَانَ يَرْجُو لِقَاءَ رَبِّهِ فَلْيَعْمَلْ عَمَلًا صَالِحًا وَلَا يُشْرِكْ بِعِبَادَةِ رَبِّهِ أَحَدًا. As though these words are written with tears, as though these words, these last words of Suratul Kahf are written with tears. فَمَنْ كَانَ يَرْجُو لِقَاءَ رَبِّهِ. And whosoever has in this heart, his heart, the desire for a return to his Lord, which would be a happy return, فَلْيَعْمَلْ عَمَلًا صَالِحًا. Then be righteous in your conduct. Don't pay your Indonesian maid the wage of a dog. No, be just. فَلْيَعْمَلْ عَمَلًا صَالِحًا. Be righteous in your conduct. وَلَا يُشْرِكْ بِعِبَادَةِ رَبِّهِ أَحَدًا. And do not commit shirk. Do not commit shirk. Can we change that world? The world which is inundated with shirk? My opinion is no, not possible. That world will change us. We can't change that world. But if you differ with me, by all means go ahead and change it. If you cannot change that world, what do? Listen to the hadith. The Prophet said, sallallahu ta'ala alayhi wa sallam, Man ra'a munkaran falyughayyirhu biyadi. When you see something which is munkar, for example, you see shirk all around you, all around you. What do? You must attempt to change it with your hand. Take appropriate action to change it. Don't sit down and do nothing about it. فَإِن لَمْ يَسْتَطِعْ فَبِلِسَانِهِ. And if you lack the power to be able to change that munkar with your hands, then use your tongue to change it. Speak out about it. And if you lack the power to change it with your tongue, yours is a voice crying in the wilderness. Nobody is listening. Then what else? فَإِن لَمْ يَسْتَطِعْ فَبِقَلْبِهِ. Then at least in your heart you must detest it. وَذَلِكَ أَضْعَفُ الْإِيمَانِ. That's the hadith. But there's more to it than that. If you continue to reside in the midst of that shirk, then one day the heart will no longer detest it. No. The heart will no longer feel the shirk. It's like the naked woman in the shopping malls. The first time you saw her, dressed and yet naked, you thought the sky was going to fall. Huh? But then, day after day after day after day, now you can go to the shopping mall and you can have a nice lunch in the shopping mall with your family and son, and the nakedness will be all around you. No, it wouldn't affect you. The heart is not going to register. I detest this place. I want to get out of this place. I don't want to be here. No. Your heart will no longer register anything. So then, where are you? Our response is, if you cannot change it with your hand, and if you cannot change it with your tongue, and you are detesting it with your heart, don't stay there. Because one day the heart will no longer register any tremors. Withdraw from that society. This is our response. What does Surah Al-Kahf say? In Surah Al-Kahf, we have the story of the young men who had faith. And it is instructive that Allah chooses young men. Young men. And they live in a society which, like today's society, is worshipping other than Allah. With the lip you say you worship Allah, but otherwise you're not worshipping Allah. No. These young men stood up and proclaimed the truth to their people. But they didn't like it. And the people targeted them. If they had just sat down quietly, mind their own business, do your work, go back home, have dinner with your family and go to sleep, no problem. But from the time you stand up and proclaim the truth and challenge falsehood and challenge shirk, they go come after you. What did the young men do? Did they choose to remain in that society? No. They fled. They fled. Allah says, وَإِذِ اعْتَزَلْتُمُوهُمْ, when you turn away from them, وَمَا يَعْبُدُونَ إِلَّا اللَّهِ, and from that which they worship other than Allah, فَأْوُوا إِلَى الْكَهْفِ, take refuge in the cave. يَنْشُرْ لَكُمْ رَبُّكُمْ مِنْ رَحْمَتِهِ, Allah will shower His rahmah upon you. وَيُحَيِّئْ لَكُمْ مِنْ أَمْرِكُمْ مِرْفَقًا, and whatever be your outward condition, Allah will endow you with that which you need. Suratul Kahf. What should we do in this age? Listen to Nabi Muhammad alayhi salatu wassalam before it is too late. This is Sahih Bukhari. Abu Sa'id al-Khudri radiyallahu ta'ala anhu narrated that Allah's messenger said that the time will come when the best property that a Muslim can have will be some sheep which he'll take to the mountainsides, in places where rain falls, like the valleys, fleeing with his religion from fitna. And so our response, based on this hadith of the Prophet ﷺ, and based on our analysis on only one thing so far, the shirk of the modern age, is that we want to withdraw from society. But withdrawal from society is not withdrawal from jihad. Not at all. And withdrawal from society is not withdrawal from da'wah. Not at all. We withdraw from society in order to preserve faith. That's why. If we remain in society, we fear we're going to lose faith. Because the heart will be seeing, and yet we'll no longer feel in our heart a sense of detesting. It's like your mother, the one who is most lovable in your sight, most honorable in your sight, dearest of all in your sight. And your mother is in the public and she is being cursed, and you do nothing about it. Life goes on as usual. That's your mother. This is Allah. If this is your mother and this is Allah, and this is what they're doing with Allah and His deen, and in your heart there is nothing, what will Allah do with you? But if you withdraw from society, oh Allah, we are withdrawing. We are withdrawing because we want to preserve our faith. Then how do you preserve the faith through withdrawal? Our answer is a small community which will live in accordance with Allah's guidance. I call it the Muslim village. And I found to my surprise that European Muslims in France, in Belgium, in Germany, in Holland, in Canada, in the United States, European Muslims in Greece, in Romania, in Russia, they are the ones who seem to be most enchanted, recognizing the value of the project of a Muslim village. And they are the ones from all over the Western world. Where is the village? Where is the village? Please, I want to come, I want to come, I want to come. And our own people, seem least interested and are content to live as they are. It's not only the shirk of the modern age, it's more than that. But I don't have the time to deal with riba. Read my books, listen to my lectures. We don't have unlimited time tonight. But notice the last revelation to come down in the Quran. It is the last revelation. O you who have faith in Allah, fear Allah. Ittaqullah. Surah Al-Baqarah, verse 279. وَذَرُوا مَا بَقِيَ مِنَ الرِّبَا إِن كُنتُم مُؤْمِنِينَ وَإِن لَّمْ تَفْعَلُوا فَأَذَنُوا بِحَرْبٍ مِّنَ اللَّهِ وَرَسُولِهِ إِلَى آخِرِ الْآيَةِ. O you who have faith in Allah, fear Allah and give up what remains of your demand for riba, the money lender who lent on interest. But that's not the only form of riba. A transaction based on deception. A transaction based on deception, which delivers a gain or a profit or an advantage to which you are not justly entitled. That also is riba. The Americans call it a rip-off. Ya ayyuhalladhina amanu, O you who have faith in Allah. Surah Al-Baqarah, verse 200 and how much? 79. You forgot already. Ittaqullah, fear Allah. فَأَذَنُوا بِحَرْبٍ مِّنَ وَذَرُوا مَا بَقِيَ مِنَ الرِّبَا إِن كُنتُم مُؤْمِنِينَ. And give up what remains of your demand for riba, if you are indeed believers. فَإِن لَّمْ تَفْعَلُوا. And if you do not do that, فَأَذَنُوا بِحَرْبٍ مِّنَ اللَّهِ وَرَسُولِهِ. Then take notice of a declaration of war from Allah and from His Messenger. Surah Al-Baqarah, verse 279. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has declared that if you persist with riba, He's going to wage war. And His Messenger, alayhi salatu wasalam, will wage war on you. Who is the you? Ya ayyuhalladhina amanu. He's talking to us, not to the kuffar. Ya ayyuhalladhina amanu, O you who have faith in Allah. He's talking to us, that Allah is going to wage war on us if we persist in riba. Are we in riba today? We are inundated in riba. You know that. If you have not studied the subject so far, please stop and study it. You cannot get out of riba today. Not me. I can't get out of riba. Riba is all around. The Prophet ﷺ prophesied. He said the time will come when you'll not be able to find a single person in all of mankind who would not be consuming riba. And whosoever claimed that he is not consuming riba, verily the dust of riba would be upon him. Verily the vapor of riba would reach him. How will Allah wage war in Akhirulzaman? Would you like to know? Surah Al-Isra, the one which is just before Surah Al-Kahf. And listen to what Allah says about how He's going to wage war. بَعْدَ أَعُوذُ بِاللَّهِ مِنَ الشَّيْطَانِ الرَّجِيمِ. Listen, this is the word of Allah. وَإِن مِّن قَرْيَةٍ إِلَّا نحن مهلكوها قبل يوم القيامة. And there is not a single city and not a single town that will escape, but we will destroy them all before Qiyamah. أو معذبوها عذابا شديدا. And those which are not destroyed would be afflicted with terrible punishment. كان ذلك في الكتاب مسطورا. This is inscribed in the book. That's the punishment. He said, I'm going to wage war on you. That's what he said. And this is how he's going to wage war in Akhirulzaman. Every city and every town will be destroyed. And those that are not destroyed would be targeted and afflicted with terrible, terrible punishment. What do you do? What do you do? When Musa alayhi salam came down from the mountain, Mount Sinai, not the hospital in Manhattan, the mountain. When he came down the mountain and he found that they were worshipping a golden calf, remember? He held on to his brother Harun by his head and by his beard and shook him up. What have you done? I said, no brother, not me. Samiri, the other ones, they wanted to kill me if I stopped them. Musa alayhi salam then made dua to Allah, فَافْرِقْ بَيْنِي وَبَيْنَ الْقَوْمِ الْفَاسِقِينَ. Separate me from them. I want to be separated from these people. And so when you see the world inundated with riba, inundated with shirk, if you cannot change that world, if you cannot close down the banking system, the Dajjal's banking system, which incidentally is about to play the most strategic role ever in its history around the corner. If war breaks out, if Turkey attacks Syria, as I am expecting maybe within the next few days, what's going to happen to the US dollar? The US dollar is going to collapse. You know that already, don't you? The US economy is going to collapse. The whole world of paper money is going to be phased out. People who are using the soft currency, you know the hard currency and soft currency? You know that? I was lecturing in Brunei, a gathering of scholars of Islam, and I made a joke and nobody laughed. Oh my gosh. Nobody laughed because the scholars of Islam didn't know the subject. I said when they gave us this monetary system and they printed their paper and we printed our paper, but they had a special chemical and they used to dip their paper in the chemical and it came out as hard currency. We didn't have that chemical, so we don't have hard currency. Nobody laughed. Nobody laughed. So the people who don't have hard currency, as soon as the US dollar collapses, what are they going to do? They're going to be ditching the Pakistani rupees and ditching the Bangladeshi taka and the Indonesian rupee as fast as they can. It will be panic, because the price of bread is rising 4 or 5 times a day. And in the process, paper money will go. And when paper money goes, guess who is in charge? Answer? Electronic, digital money. And who is in charge of electronic and digital money. Dajjal's banking system. And if you don't know the subject of Dajjal, study it. Stop what you're doing and study the subject. You cannot understand the reality of the world today without ilmu Akhirulzaman. How many times must I say it? This is tomorrow. We are inundated with riba all around us. Can you change that system? If you can, go ahead. I'm not stopping you. I know I can't change it. But then what must I do? If I am to preserve my faith, this is what he said. Sallallahu ta'ala alayhi wa sallam. He said, the time will come when the best property of a Muslim would be sheep, which he will take to the mountainsides and the places where rain falls, so as to flee with his religion from fitna. It's not only shirk, it's not only riba, it is more than that. But I have time for only one more. The last people to come out of Dajjal will be women. And a man would have to return to his home and tie down, coercively restrain his wife, his sister, his daughter, to protect them from being seduced by Dajjal. What kind of a brainwashing is this going to be of the world of women? What is it? Do we have any idea that they should be following Dajjal? He said that women will be dressed and yet be naked. Has that already happened? Well, then what are you waiting on? If today it's bad, if today they are in shorts in the shopping malls, and as you walk around in the shopping malls, all that you're seeing is flesh and flesh and flesh and flesh and flesh. Tomorrow, they're going to be walking around in the shopping malls in their intimate underwear. Yes. And then the day after that, they're going to be walking around the shopping malls naked. Is that the world that you want to bring your children up in? Is this what you want your children to see? Huh? Don't you have love for your children? Did you live in a world like that, that your children should be subjected to that? Huh? No. He said that people will have sexual intercourse in public like donkeys. No Prime Minister ever said that. No. But Nabi Muhammad alayhi salatu wasalam said that. And the evidence is now abundant that we are on the verge of seeing this with our own eyes. He said that in Akhirulzaman, one man would have to maintain 50 women. You've heard that, haven't you? Come on, shake your heads. Yes. You have heard that, haven't you? Yes. Good. What's going to cause it? Why this amazing disproportion? Is it war? Is it war? Or is it plague? Our answer that we've been giving for a long time now, but the medical profession doesn't seem to be listening, is that there is going to be a calamitous decline in the birth of baby boys. That there is an attack which has been launched on the male sperm. And as this male sperm is attacked, the chromosomes become weaker and weaker. One of the instruments of the attack is something you may have seen somewhere, sometime. I don't know whether you know about it. Here, we have it here. It's something called a cell phone. Ever saw it? Huh? It emits radiation. It doesn't work by magic. And the radiation which comes from the cell phone, the radiation which comes from the laptop computer, the radiation which is all around you with, what's it called, Wi-Fi? Wi-Fi. That radiation is not harmless. That radiation has an impact upon you. But the damage on the male is greater than the damage on the female. I went to give this lecture at Telecom, is it? A Malaysian telecom company. And after I gave the lecture, one of the employees of the company got up and said, "Sheikh, we got the evidence. Our personnel who work on putting up the poles, they have reported they can't have baby boys. We have the evidence right here in Malaysia. Because the chromosomes become weaker and weaker, so that the male chromosome cannot fertilize the egg. And when the male chromosome fails to fertilize the egg, then the default is the female. And that is Dajjal's success. And so we are on the verge now of a tomorrow when there's going to be an explosion of the birth of baby girls. And a baby boy will be 1 in 1,000 perhaps. What kind of world is it going to be then? Dajjal came along with a master plan. And the master plan was designed to make Nabi Muhammad alayhi salam look bad. The master plan is that civilized men have only one wife. And he brainwashed mankind to such an extent. He brainwashed both men and women to such an extent that nearly everybody has accepted Dajjal's view, that civilized men have only one wife. And if a man were to step out of monogamy to have more than one wife, society looks down upon him. In consequence of which, Dajjal could now point, look at him, there he is, your prophet, look how many wives he had, makes him look bad. What are you going to do in your society tomorrow, which is coming? Tell me what's your plan. When women can't get husbands, they're going to be stealing husbands. Oh yeah. When women cannot get husbands, it's going to be free for all. It's going to be zina around the world. The Prophet ﷺ spoke about Akhirulzaman as an age of kathratu zina, and children being born as bastard children. Our solution is the Muslim village. One of the first lessons I was taught by my teacher, Maulana Dr. Muhammad Fadlur Rahman Ansari rahimahullah, when I left Al-Azhar University to go to study with him in Pakistan, one of the best decisions I've ever made in my life, although I love Egypt. The first lesson he taught me, and it was a shock, because I had attended the best college in my country. I had got a Western education. It came as a shock to me. He said to me, once you accept this Quran to be the word of Allah, then whatever is in the Quran, whether you understand it or you don't, whether you are comfortable with it or you are not, you must submit. That is Islam. That is Islam. Let me repeat that, because a young lady wrote to me from Egypt and she was rather annoyed. How come, Sheikh? They can have more wives, we can't have more husbands. She was demanding an explanation from me. So this is how we begin the subject. Once you accept that this Quran is Kalamullah, the word of Allah, then whatever is in the Quran, you must bow down and submit to it. Whether you understand or you don't, submit. Understanding will come later. Ask me, I can tell you how much I knew at the age 21 and how much I know now. Whether you are comfortable with it or you are not, bow down and submit to the Quran. And so our first response is that Allah, in His wisdom, and He is more wise than all of us, in His wisdom He has recognized the right of a man to have more than one wife. For whatever reason, that's his personal business. You don't ask him, that's not your business. But Allah has placed a limit. He said 2, 3, 4, which means not 2 plus 3 plus 4. No. 2 or 3 or 4. But on the condition that you must be equitable in your relationship with your wives. You must show equity. And if you fear that you cannot be equitable with them, then, says Allah, stay with only one. Okay? So Islam, the religion, has given a different philosophy of marriage to that which has come from Dajjal. Make your choice. Will you take that which has come from Allah, or will you take that which has come from Dajjal? Why has Allah allowed women only one husband? And why has Allah allowed men more than one wife? He has not explained in the Quran. We can offer our opinion, but at the end of the day, it's only opinions. But it is instructive that Nabi Muhammad alayhi salatu wasalam had many wives. Many wives. And this is a message that Allah is conveying to us, that in plural marriages there are benefits. And among the benefits is this one, that while you do not know how to solve your problem out there with 50 women to one man, we can solve it in our Muslim village. And that is that in our village we want to live Islam. Is there anything wrong with that? Does Islam come from the government of Egypt or the government of Tunisia? Islam comes from Allah and His Messenger. And that's the Islam we want to live. Is there something wrong with that? And we want to go in a village, kampung, in the remote countryside. And in that village we want to establish the deen to the extent that we can do so. Is there anything wrong with it? To do so in order to preserve our faith. And so I have said that in our village, you're not going to be voting in elections. No. In the process of voting in elections, you're saying goodbye to Khilafah and goodbye to Darul Islam. You are validating the substitute that Dajjal has given. But Ikhwan al-Muslimun in Egypt don't understand that. So we won't vote in elections. If that's a crime, tell us, so we can make hijrah somewhere else. And if there's nowhere on the face of the earth we can live, then we'll hide in a mountain rather than betray Allah and His Messenger. We prefer to hide in a mountain rather than betray Allah and His Messenger. We're not voting in elections. You want to vote, we're not stopping you. Go ahead, that's your choice. It's not ours. Can't you respect our choice? Our choice is based on knowledge that you don't have. And in our kampung, we're not going to be using your paper money. Is that a crime? Are we breaking the law by bringing back what Allah and His Messenger has given, the dinar and the dirham? I'm going to say something now. I met recently with Dr. Mahathir, the former Prime Minister. And one of the first things I told him was that you and Charles de Gaulle are the only two world leaders that I know of who have stood up, Charles de Gaulle long before you, in denouncing this monetary system as fraudulent. And I'm proud of what you did. And he also called for the return of the dinar. Yes, not in the market, but at least in government-to-government trade, or balance of payments. At least it was a start. So I was proud of him, and I told him that. So in our village, we'll try to bring back dinar and dirham. What's wrong with that? And if you won't allow us anywhere on the face of the earth, we rather hide in a mountain than to continue to be a part of your electronic monetary system, in which the banking system is in charge. And every transaction that you make, they have it recorded. If that's what you want, stay with it. That paper money is bogus, it's fraudulent, it's haram. You don't know it, but I know it. And don't attempt to challenge me, because you'll regret it. That paper money is bogus, it's fraudulent, it's haram. And the electronic money is more bogus and more fraudulent and more haram and vastly more dangerous. And so in our village, we're going to stay away as much as we can from shirk and from riba. But that's not all. You're not coming in our village to create fitna. And this one is a Sufi, and that one is a Salafi, and this one is a Deobandi, and that one is a Barelvi, and this one is a Wahhabi, and this one is this, and that, and that, and that, and that. No. We are one Jama'ah, and we must have one Amir in this Jama'ah. One Jama'ah with one Amir. And in order to create a united Jama'ah with one Amir, you have to accept that only the Quran and the Sunnah can unite us. There is nothing else that can unite us, only the Quran and the Sunnah. And so we say that in our village, we start with the masjid, and that we will not allow in our masjid anything which is not firmly based on the Quran and the universally accepted Sunnah. If you have a religious practice which you've had for generations and generations now, and it is beneficial, it's not like drinking whiskey, but it is not based on the Sunnah, then we say, sorry, don't bring it in the masjid. Keep it in your home if you want. Don't bring it in the masjid. Don't bring it in the public life. So that the Quran and Sunnah may be allowed to play the role which only they can play of uniting the Jama'ah. And so in our village, the Sufi and the Salafi will live together as brothers. The Deobandi and the Brelvi will live together as brothers in our village. And if you want to celebrate the birth anniversary of the Prophet sallallahu ta'ala alayhi wasallam, which is not like drinking whiskey, is it? But it is not based on the Sunnah. We say just don't bring it in the masjid and don't bring it in the public life. That's all. Keep it in the private. And if you keep it in the private and somebody comes to your doorstep to start shouting bid'ah and haram for what you're doing in private, then we'll ship that fella out of the Muslim village faster than Federal Express. Because he's an agent of fitna. How will we solve the problem of the corruption of food? Because food is increasingly being corrupted. And if you give your babies the milk with hormone injections in it, and the meat with hormone injections, which is what you're buying from the supermarket, your baby boys are going to grow up like girls. And your baby girls are going to grow up like boys. Yes. Maybe a baby girl might start having facial hair. Is that what you want? So we will produce our own food. Forget it. If you're not producing your own food, forget it, the Muslim Village Project, close it down. You got to produce your own food. And your food must be the purest food that you can get. And that is what you'll feed your babies, your children. The Muslim Village also has one more thing to offer. I must end now, it's getting late. We ourselves have 4 projects at the moment. One is here in Malaysia, and it's led by Malaysians, not by me. And we've already bought some land, and the land is being cleared, and the access road is about 90% built already. And perhaps by the end of the year, we're going to have food crops and some animals on the land, and maybe the first kampung house will be up. There are many kampungs in Malaysia, and they're not news for you. So this is one project in Malaysia. If you're listening to this lecture from abroad, don't ask me how to get Malaysia as a second home visa, how to get work permit. I can't help you with that. No, I can't help you with that. I'm just letting you know that we are working on the project in Malaysia. I won't mention the location. And alhamdulillah, they're young people. We have another project in Tunisia. But strange things are happening in Tunisia, you know. And they have already located a large plot of land with 600 olive trees. And with a masjid already built, but nobody using the masjid. Masjid is not being used, abandoned. And we're trying to get that property. We have a third project in Cape Town in South Africa. And what happened in South Africa is that the white colonial rulers took all the good land. And there were very large white farms, white-owned farms. And after the transfer of power to the African people, it became dangerous now, sometimes, for white people to be driving on lonely roads. And the African labor becoming increasingly hostile to them. So they want to sell their farms. They want to sell their farms. And so what we're trying to do is to buy a farm, a model farm, where probably 50 families can be accommodated and will be self-sufficient. It's already built as a farm. And then go to a second and a third and a fourth and so on. And the fourth project that we have is in Egypt. Close to the Libyan border, very far from Cairo. Let me not talk more about that project. So these are 4 projects that we have, but there's one in Indonesia. What's the name of that place? Medani? The Medina project in an island in Indonesia, started by a German brother, Brother Habib. And some of my students are already resident there in Indonesia, in that project. But you don't have to go to one of our projects. You can start a village of your own out of love for your children. Or you can go to an existing village and attempt to transform it through education into what we call a Muslim village. But one last thing before I end. In anticipation of a tomorrow when many women will not have husbands, and in recognition of the fact that we already live in a world today where many women cannot get husbands, we have said, in conformity with the Sunnah, let me tell you the Sunnah. Khadija radiallahu ta'ala anha had a slave. Her name was Barakah. And when she took the baby Muhammad alayhi salatu wasalam to Medina, Barakah went with her. And on the return trip she died in a place called Abwa. And it was this slave woman Barakah who brought Nabi Muhammad alayhi salatu wasalam back to Mecca. And she lived with the Prophet ﷺ until the time came for him to marry Khadija radiallahu ta'ala. Then he set her free. And he arranged for her marriage in a tribe outside of Mecca. She gave birth to a boy. His name was Ayman. So she became known as Ayman Barakah. Subsequently, her husband died. And when her husband died, she came back to the Prophet ﷺ. And he welcomed her back with these words, "This is the last member of my family now still alive. The last member of my family." And he spoke to his companions, "Who will marry her? Who will marry her?" Meaning, I want some of you to marry her. And Zaid radiallahu ta'ala anhu, the adopted son, he said, "I will marry her." And after he married her, they had a baby called, help me somebody, Osama, correct. So he was known as Osama, the grandson of the Prophet alayhi salatu wasalam. Who will marry her? This is a sunnah. So when a woman comes to our Muslim village and says to us, "I want a husband," somebody has to marry her. Of course, if you make your proposal of marriage, she has the right to say no. That's all right. But somebody has to marry her. Which is why I want to give a gentle word of warning. A gentle word of warning. If your head has not as yet reached that stage where you can bow down and submit to Allah, and bow down and submit to the Quran, and accept that Allah has permitted plural marriages, and you insist, no, my husband, no, I don't want him to take another wife. If he takes another wife, going to be trouble here. We say to her, sister, and we say it as gently as we can, do not come and corrupt our village. No, because in our village we want those who submit to Allah's deen, whether you understand it or you don't, whether you're comfortable with it you or not. Once it has come from Allah and His Messenger, we submit. We pray that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala may bless our effort now to build the Muslim village. رَبَّنَا تَقَبَّلْ مِنَّا إِنَّكَ أَنْتَ السَّمِيعُ الْعَلِيمُ وَتُبْ عَلَيْنَا يَا مَوْلَانَا إِنَّكَ أَنْتَ التَّوَّابُ الرَّحِيمُ بِرَحْمَتِكَ يَا أَرْحَمَ الرَّاحِمِينَ آمين. I have written extensively on the subject as a political analyst. There is an essay on my website. I know that these views of mine are going to sit uncomfortably in many hearts. But I don't preach Islam to please the people. No. If I had to preach Islam to please the people, I might as well go and drive a taxi. If Allah has blessed me at this late stage in my life with some status in the world, one of the reasons is because I've not been afraid to speak and to say what has to be said, regardless of consequences. There's an essay on my website entitled, Can Muslims Vote in Elections of the Modern Secular State? Don't bother to even respond to it if you have not studied the subject of Akhirulzaman. Don't argue with me until you have studied the subject of Akhirulzaman. Read Jerusalem in the Quran. We have it in English, we have it in Bahasa. And after you've studied Akhirulzaman, you'll then be able to understand the political system in the world today, the economic system in the world today, the monetary system in the world today. How is it that no economist was able to anticipate 15 years or more ago that the US dollar is going to collapse? And Imran Hosein did it. What is it? How do you explain it? 15 years ago or more, that the US dollar must collapse. I didn't say will collapse, I said must collapse. And with it, it'll bring down all the paper money in the world. And electronic money will take over. Where did I get this knowledge from? So be careful before you challenge me. I got this because of my study of Ilmu Akhirulzaman. That's where I got it. So read that essay, Can Muslims Vote in Elections of the Modern Secular State? And then, if you differ with it, let me hear your response. Any more questions? The question is, I am an adult male and I want to move to the Muslim village, but my family doesn't want to do so. My answer is, save yourself first. Only if you save yourself do you have a chance to save others. So if you have to leave them and go to the village, do that. This is happening now, you know. In the United States, many are waking up. And then the father would say to the family, we're moving back to Pakistan. This is what is coming up. And the mother would say, you can go, we're staying here. And the children would say, Dad, you can go, but we're staying here. Too late, too late, too late. And so he packs up and he goes to Pakistan. Which da'wah is more powerful? To go out there and deliver 1,000 lectures to the non-Muslims? Or to invite a non-Muslim to come to the village to see Islam? You don't have to preach. No, they just have to come and look and see how you live. Your body will speak. The smiles in the village will speak. The food that you eat will speak. The happiness of the woman will speak. Huh? The unity of the community would speak. The discipline of the community would speak. And that would be a far more powerful da'wah than the 1,000 lectures. What do we do for energy in the Muslim village? You can use electricity from the electricity grid, but don't be so foolish to depend upon it, because they can switch it off. Well then, what can be used as your backup? In Surah Al-Kahf there is the answer. The answer was the young men were sleeping in the cave, and they slept for 300 years. How did they survive? They need some energy for the vital organs to remain alive. And Allah says the sunlight entered the cave in the mornings and in the evenings. And the bodies of the young men would roll attracted to the sunlight, back and forth, back and forth. And so Surah Al-Kahf is telling us that there is a transformation of sunlight to energy. We call it solar energy now. And the one thing that the World Bank does not want you to do is to harness solar energy, because they want to keep you hooked on oil. So in our village, to the extent that we can use solar energy, wind energy, other forms of energy, India has done a lot of work in that field. We will try to exploit alternative forms of energy. I've seen in Malaysia, you have electricity, street lights powered with solar panels. Yeah. Cooking with solar cooker. Somebody wanted to have a solar air conditioning for the motor car. I don't know where that project went. I don't have the time to speak about industry and the Muslim village. That's a very important point, because we don't want the Muslim village to be a hotel. Every morning 6 o'clock all the men are gone, and every evening 6 o'clock all the men return. Oh no, no. We want that masjid to be full 5 times a day. 5 times a day. A woman is free to come to the masjid to perform salat. Oh yes, in our village. And she is most certainly permitted to come for Salatul Jummah. I don't know what happens in Malaysia. Do you allow it? Very quiet, eh? And when, yeah, they don't have space. You don't have space. You can build the tallest building in the world, but you don't have space. So, our women will have the freedom. If you want to stay home, you stay home. But if you want to come to the masjid, you're free to come. And when you come to the masjid, we're not going to put you in a balcony. We're not going to put you in a basement. We're not going to put you in an annex. No. We're going to put you where Muhammad ﷺ put you. Where did he put you? Tell them for me. He said, tell the women, when they go down in sajda, that they must remain longer in sajda than the men. Have you ever heard that hadith? Huh? Have you ever heard it? It's in cold storage now. That's what we've done with the religion of Muhammad ﷺ. Because he said some of the men may not have enough cloth to cover themselves properly. So was there a shortage of branches in Medina? They could put up a screen. They could take some wood and build a partition. They could have a curtain or something. Why didn't they do that? Shall we improve on the religion that came with the Prophet ﷺ? No. He didn't do that. So when the woman came to the masjid, she was at the back and the men at the front. And there was no partition in between. It was not two spaces, it was one space. It was not two spaces, it was one space. And the best row for the men is the first. And the best row for the woman is the last. So she'll fill the last row, and then the second to the last, and then the third to the last, and he'll fill the first and the second and the third and the fourth, until they come close to each other. And that's when he said, that's where the greatest danger lies. So be careful. So in the Muslim village, women will come to the masjid and pray in the masjid in the same space with the men, without any barrier, without any partition, without any curtain. And if anyone is uncomfortable with that, we say, why don't you remain where you are? You don't need to come. What is your advice to the young men who are convinced with the idea of establishing a Muslim village but do not have the resources and the capital to buy land, etc.? We are buying land at 9,000 ringgits an acre. In Damansara, Utama, I think it sells about 4 million or 10 million an acre. Go to where land is cheapest. And if you cannot afford to even buy a little plot of land, somebody may allow you to put up a little kampung house on his land. And it's something that is collapsible. You can dismount it and move it and so on. So don't say, I don't have the money. How do we choose our Amir in the village? Neither the Quran nor the Sunnah has given us any single methodology, or method, for choosing an Amir. The method which was used for Abu Bakr Siddiq radiallahu ta'ala anhu was different from the method used for Umar Farooq radiallahu ta'ala anhu, was different from the method used for Uthman Ghani radiallahu ta'ala anhu. The basic principle at work was وَأَمْرُهُمْ شُورَ بَيْنَهُمْ, that the process must be one in which there is mutual consultation amongst the people. So nobody is left out. Nobody is left out. So we are free to use whatever method we want to use. What Dajjal has done is to give us a method which destroys what Allah has created. You may not be aware of it, but Allah has said in the Quran, إِنَّا خَلَقْنَاكُم مِّن ذَكَرٍ وَأُنثَى. We have surely created you from a single male and a single female. وَجَعَلْنَاكُمْ شُعُوبًا وَقَبَائِلَ لِتَعَارَفُوا. And we have ordained that you should emerge as nations and tribes, groups, communities. He did not create us as individuals. No. He did something vastly more important, wiser than that, than creating individuals. He created us as communities. And the purpose of creating us as communities, لِتَعَارَفُوا, that this may bind you together, that you may be able to recognize each other. But this should not be a source of rivalry. إِنَّ أَكْرَمَكُمْ عِنْدَ اللَّهِ أَتْقَاكُمْ. The best of you in the sight of Allah is he or she who has the greatest taqwa. What Dajjal has done is to destroy this bond of nations and tribes and create a political system in which the individual is now the unit of the state. And so individuals will exercise individual choice in something called voting. And in the process of holding this carnival called voting, this circus called voting, in the process of constantly having this voting system of individuals, you will eventually break up the tribes and the communities. So we never had this system of one man, one vote, one woman, one vote. No. What we had was a system in which you will have one tribe, and that tribe will consult among themselves, and the Amir of that tribe will then express the view on behalf of the tribe. And through this process of mutual consultation, we will then arrive at a decision concerning the appointment of an Amir. A much wiser and more sensible system than that which Dajjal has delivered. Last question. How far are we from?
The nuclear war is going
The nuclear war. It's close. Don't ask me how close. Allah has given you a statement in Surah Al-Kahf. He said, if you turn away from them and not that they worship other than Allah, then flee to the cave. And if you do that, Allah will shower you with His mercy. Okay? Allah will protect you. You cannot expect to establish a Muslim village and you will not be targeted, that you will not be attacked. But despite that, you must do it. When you are targeted, when you are attacked, when you have to flee, leave everything behind, you do not give up. You are being tested. You are becoming 1 in 1,000. I will not give up. I am not returning to that shirk. I am not returning to that riba. Even if I have to go and hide in a cave in a mountain, I will do that. You are on the road to becoming the 1 in 1,000. Do not look down upon the society. Be kind, be compassionate. They don't have any knowledge, none. And the reason why they don't have any knowledge is because the scholars of Islam have failed and failed and failed and failed miserably. Miserably. We are about to become the laughing stock of the world. Yeah. When Egypt enforces Sharia, and then an Egyptian family comes with a 6-year-old child to be married to a 55-year-old man. Huh? And Sharia court says, Jaiz. So when I told Dr. Mahathir, we are about to become the laughing stock of the world, you know what he said to me? He said, we are already the laughing stock of the world. In your work, an Islamic view of Gog and Magog in the modern world, You stress that the public life of a Muslim village must be established on the firm foundations of the Quran and Sunnah to prevent disunity and conflict. What are the further measures and precautions that should be taken by the village community to protect themselves from being demoralized by certain scholars of Islam who are against the establishment of Muslim villages or being pressured by their governments around the world? I already answered. If they don't allow us to build a small little village, harmless little village, far from the city, in the remote countryside, if that is what you're not going to allow us, you're sending the armed forces to us, then we prefer to go and hide in a mountain. But wait for tomorrow, when Allah is going to destroy every town and every city, and those that are not destroyed will be punished with terrible punishment. We know that's coming. You don't know it. There are other measures that we can take to maintain the unity of the Jama'ah, but that will take too much time at this time. So I want to end now and pray that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala may bless all those who now decide enough is enough. I want out of this rotten world, and I want to go and establish Islam somewhere in the remote countryside where my children can grow up in a healthy environment, better than this rotten world, and establish the deen that Allah and His Messenger may be proud of me. رَبَّنَا تَقَبَّلْ مِنَّا إِنَّكَ أَنْتَ السَّمِيعُ الْعَلِيمُ وَتُبْ عَلَيْنَا يَا مَوْلَانَا إِنَّكَ أَنْتَ التَّوَّابُ الرَّحِيمُ بِرَحْمَتِكَ يَا أَرْحَمَ الرَّاحِمِينَ.
لست للفردوس أعلى ولا أقوى على نار الجحيم. الله فهب لي توبة واغفر ذنوبي فإنك غافر الذنب العظيم. إلهي لست للفردوس أعلى ولا أقوى على نار الجحيم. الله فهب لي توبة واغفر ذنوبي فإنك غافر الذنب العظيم. Tuhanku, aku tidak layak untuk syurgamu, tetapi aku tidak pula sanggup menanggung siksa nerakamu. Dari itu kurniakanlah ampunan kepadaku, ampunkanlah dosaku. Sesungguhnya Engkaulah pengampun dosa-dosa besar. Tuhanku, aku tidak layak untuk syurgamu, tetapi aku tidak pula sanggup menanggung siksa nerakamu. Dari itu kurniakanlah ampunan kepadaku, ampunkanlah dosaku. Sesungguhnya Engkaulah pengampun dosa-dosa besar. Ilahi lastu lil firdausi a'la wala aqwa ala naril jahim. Allah fahab li tawbatan waghfir dhunubi fa innaka ghafiru dhanbil azim. Ilahi lastu lil firdaus Allah, فهب لي